Hello and welcome back to the Ospreys Eyrie podcast. I'm James. Joining me, as always, is Yestin and Robbie. Boys, how are we?
I'm doing good. Yeah, it's been an eventful last couple of days. I'm in the middle of writing the slowest main talking points of a Welsh squad ever, and it's going so slowly that it might not even be published tomorrow morning. So I'm not going to say it's going to be published tomorrow morning because that's how slow it's going. But yeah, it's been an eventful couple of days. If you see me on any other podcasts like I don't know baseball or NFL. Uh, yeah, that could easily happen. I don't know yet. I haven't made my mind up.
yeah. Yeah, Robbie, have you been drafted to like another like podcast,
Yeah, that's it.
international player program?
I'm actually going to Kabaddi now. No one saw this coming, but I'm taking up Kabaddi full time. Not even covering it. Not even Kabaddi, the Squidge Kabaddi. That isn't even starting. No, I'm just going to be playing Kabaddi professionally for Kabaddi teams. The world's top Kabaddi teams. The Bengal Warriors. I'm going to be playing for in the Pro
Celtic
Kabaddi
Warriors.
League. The Celtic Warriors. We're bringing them back. It's me and
Playing
Matthew
Kabaddi
Rees.
form.
And we're
In
playing
Kabaddi form.
Kabaddi.
You, Tal Selly, Matthew Rees.
And we're done. And
playing
Owen
Kabaddi.
Robbins himself.
And Owen Robbins, yeah.
But
You
where's
bring
the
an
game going to be
affinity.
played? That's the important question.
We're going to
Sardis
play
Road.
in Owen Robbins' back garden. And 18,000 people will show up wearing T-shirts that say the word affinity.
Oh, I love this podcast, man. Yeah, right, yeah. Welcome back. It's been another huge. It's never a quiet week in Welsh rugby. Everyone knows this. Let me just put one thing out there very quickly. I've had to disclaim this week on the X account, the Twitter account, that we are merely a shitposting account. We are not here to be like serious journalists or serious stat people. You can leave that to Scarlets and Cardiff. Right? Let them bicker about their stadiums and their attendances. We are here to merely post memes and occasionally when I remember to post the link to the podcast. Please do not tarnish us with this brush. But yeah, we loads of stuff to cover and some really exciting announcements. Which I might announce at the start, but I'll definitely announce at the end as well. Let's move on to the news. Should we start with the bad news first?
Which bad news? Where do we begin?
Everyone is injured. So prior to the game against the French council workers on Friday, George North pulled out with an illness. It's not the first time this season he's done that. Please, someone get him some vitamins and minerals. Get him on the omega oil.
Do you think that's why he's off the south of France for the vitamin D?
Yeah, it's clearly this is not a transfer. It's prescribed by his GP.
Yeah, purely medical move. I think what you need is to go and sign for a Pro Day Dud team. Said no doctor ever.
You're not going to have any eyes because they'll be gouged out, but you will have great skin and a good immune system.
What you need is fewer working jaws.
Yeah. So and then 5 minutes into the game, Dewi Lake, who is named open side flanker, ruined everyone's dreams by what seems to be a low grade hamstring tear. We have no official confirmation on the length of his injury. I expect we'll find out more in the press conference, which normally would be out today, but because we're playing on a Sunday and the Ospreys are now in South Africa, I don't know when that press conference is coming out. So, further on from that, James Fender, straight dislocation on his shoulder. I have actual sources about this because I actually messaged him and asked him, I was like, did you pop your shoulder? He said, yes. He has been spotted wearing a sling, so we expect that to be minimum 6 weeks. Really gutted for him. He was having a great game. He literally went crowd surfing at one point. Was it him going crowd surfing or was it Hickey?
Oh, yeah, yes. Yeah, well, Hickey, yeah.
Yeah, they got picked up.
Though I imagine his mum could organise it if she just made a pop the message on the Reddit. You know, a bit of a Fender
Can you
crowd
go
surf.
crowd surfing, please? So yeah, Fender's out. Garen Phillips picks up a knock. Again, we don't know the stuff around that. Gareth Thomas also picks up a knock. It's not serious enough to keep him out. Obviously, he's been named in the Welsh squad. More on that later. But they weren't comfortable bringing him back on, meaning the game finished in uncontested scrums. Anyone else get injured? Probably.
Did something. I don't know what he did.
Who did?
Dan Edwards. I think he tried to kick a penalty, then something went a bit funny.
And it might be cramp.
Yeah, it could have been. But
there's been nothing coming out saying Dan Edwards is going to be. He's travelled to South Africa, so I don't expect that to be.
I might be overlooking everything because everyone else is injured, but
yeah, this is true. But good news. Will Hickey returned after 12 months. That was nice to see. A bit rusty here and there, but stats-wise, he had a really, really solid game.
A huge travelling contingent of Irish fans over.
Yeah, that is the most fans Leinster have brought in years. Yeah, and a Sam Davis lookalike, which is my favourite thing.
Yeah, from ripping it up to the Pro D to watching Ospreys Perpignan on a Friday night. What more?
But only Will Hickey. Like he was there only to see Will Hickey.
Just as support Will Hickey.
Do you think it was Sam Davis, but he didn't want to repeat with the Tulipe Faletau situation the other year, where Faletau went to the Liberty and everyone was like, he's signing for the Ospreys when he was just taking his kids on a day out because they fancied watching a game of rugby that day. And everyone assumed he's signed for the Ospreys. And Sam Davis went, I'm just going to do an Irish accent to pretend. I'm just going to see if I can get away with it if I put on a voice.
I'm dragging a couple of friends from Ireland as well. Come along.
This is a really deep cut, but I'm a big wrestling fan. And years ago, there was a wrestler getting quite big on WWE, and he decided to go watch a TNA show because they were being taped, and his mate was in it. And TNA decided to be really spiteful and show him in the crowd and put a nameplate up and everything. Essentially, buried his career, and he never did anything. So that's what they were trying to do with Faletau all them years ago. This is what they're doing with the Sam Davis lookalike now, and Andy Howell is going to be like having kittens at the fact that Sam Davis might be coming back.
It's nailed on. It's nailed on. That entire squad, we're getting the band back together.
Every time
Tom Haberfield back alongside.
Every time I think of Sam Davis, right, I always think of Stuart Barnes.
Yeah.
Because when the Guinness Pro 14 and 12 was on Sky, they used to have it was always Stuart Barnes and Scott Quinnell. They were the only two people allowed to do Ospreys coverage. And Stuart Barnes used to rave about Sam Davis. And he did have a weapon. Like he had a wand of a left foot. Everyone knows. And he was one of the best 10s in Wales. And only made better by bigger, I think.
Yeah.
But that's all I remember about Sam Davis in an Ospreys shirt.
Such a weird era, that Sky Sports Pro 12 era, because it feels like a separate pocket of time. Like in my head, they jumped from the BBC coverage to the Premier Sports coverage and just something happened in the middle. All of those games feel fake now. It feels so strange in my head. But as you say, yeah, it was always every week. Miles Harrison would say, and that's an okay kick from Sam Davis. Then Stuart Barnes would launch into how it was the greatest left foot hit he'd ever seen.
It's basically how they talk about Freddie Stewart now.
Yeah.
But Sam Davis's left foot.
I remember him shouting over and over again. He tried to coin the phrase that Dan Biggar was half a fullback, which means he's a fly half, surely.
There's little tidbits of that era I remember, and weirdly they're all against Munster.
Yeah, same.
Because there's one at home where we were winning. We won like 70. We were winning like 17-0 or something. And Tyler
Ardron, player of the match,
pulls back this pass. Yeah, and
I actually
and
saw a recommendation on my YouTube yesterday, and it was like someone made a compilation of that performance. Ruddy Darter,
now the tier 2 rugby guy on Twitter.
Yeah,
which, oh man, he's a fascinating character. I'm slightly obsessed with it. Anyone that's listened to the Squid Rugby Retrospective podcast I did, we got Ruddy Darter is a reoccurring character there. He's a fascinating guy.
What a man. The other one is the away game in Munster. I think I don't think it was a semi-final. I think it was a regular season game. But Tipperick hits a beautiful line, and Miles Harrison has kittens. He goes, Tipperick, oh, what a line!
I watched that try recently again. I watched that back genuinely last week. I can't remember why it came up. As happens, yeah, Hassler finishing it,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Oh, he's got it off to Hassler. That's the line. It's
And then there was the other game against Munster. The other one I remember was the semi-final where Josh Matavesi, who'd had a kid that morning and got a helicopter over, then scores the winning try.
Helicopter, yeah.
Yeah. Scores the winning try, which is then disallowed for a Reece Webb knock on like 4 phases beforehand. And they didn't show any replays from the team. The TMO said it was knocked on. Nigel Owens blows up for full time. They didn't show any replays. And I was fuming about that for a week. And at the time, I was working for I used to work at my old university, University of Derby. And I was doing like the following week, we had an open day. This is a long and boring story. I apologize. There was an open day, right? And a full family wearing Ospreys like jumpers come round. And I was so excited because you like, as an Ospreys fan in the Midlands, you never see this. Like I was and I was like, I leapt up and was like, I'll give this family the tour. No, it's not my turn. I'll do it. I'll show them around. And we just had a moan about it. And the dad kept saying, I think they paid Nigel off in Ireland. I think he's on the payroll of Irish rugby. And he was really confident in that Nigel Owens was an Irish spy who was receiving great amounts of money from Munster.
That era was great. Bring back the Sky Sports era, please. Yeah. But just to bring back Miles Harrison.
Oh, bring back Miles Harrison in general.
Where were we?
Good question. So everyone's injured.
Yeah,
Jeff Hassler is going to play on the wing.
Yeah, the ghost of Jeff Hassler is going to play on the wing. Yeah, Will Hickey's back. That's brilliant. We'll obviously we'll talk about the game. Prior to the game, Lance Bradley, new CEO and everyone's dad, spoke to SLC and confirmed that the Ospreys were indeed searching for a new ground. Now, we've been talking about this for weeks, and we're talking about the St. Helens aspect of it. Lance has confirmed that nothing is in stone yet, although I personally think he's still in Porkies. There is scope for all four of the grounds to redevelop. There's arguments for all of them. Yes, you're one who spent a considerable amount of time at all four of them grounds. What on the briefest of tangents? Which one do you think would be best to redo?
That's a good question. Because you put it this way, that you got the Brewery Field that's obviously had professional games there from the Ospreys in recent years. Then you've had the Knoll, who might have had one or two. But I really enjoyed the atmosphere of Swansea against Barbarians at St. Helens back last May. Obviously, that might just been a one-off for that particular occasion. But I'm slowly leaning towards St. Helens. And I think Ben James had the exclusive interview with Bradley before we went to TV. And my dad mentioned it to me, saying, I wouldn't mind moving out now to get one of the grounds in and make sure we get a good atmosphere in. So I think he was leaning towards St. Helens as well. We had a bit of a deep chat about this, funnily enough, on Friday night. And so I'm leaning towards St. Helens at the moment, just because there's probably, you could easily strike up a partnership with the university in some way. I'm not sure how. And hopefully there'll be something done like that. But that's nothing against the other three grounds. Aberavon have got some really good food. So if you're ever down there for a game, there's a good selection of food. And well, the Knoll was quite good. The press area is quite small, but that was still all right. And then obviously you've got the Brewery Field, like we've seen last couple of weeks, that's been used for pro rugby. But I'm leaning towards St. Helens.
Yeah, I was at that Barbarians game as well, and I was very drunk in the standing bit, and we managed to blag the wristbands to go into Swansea RFC's clubhouse, which was essentially like the hospitality bit, because we got there and our mate coaches, like the Swansea schoolboys who were parading around the field, and he gave us his wristbands, and we were going in like to the toilet because it was easy to get to the toilets basically. we were going in and you could just see ex-pros getting more and more pissed every time we went in. So like Jiffy is just slamming back wines, and like you got like Rhys Davis hanging out of a box at the top, and then there's photos of me at the end of the game with like a load of players, and I'm just more drunk. Like I think I got to who was it? Billy 12 Trees, and I'm sunburned and just pissed, and I look awful. But I met Billy 12 Trees in St Helens, and it was brilliant. And Sam Cross invited me out to Wine Street later on.
No way.
Yeah, so I was asking him. I was like, oh, where were you going? Like, were you going uplands and stuff like that? And he was like, yeah. Oh, we're going to X, Y, and Z. Do you fancy coming later? And I was like, oh, mate, if I could, I would. But I have a feeling I'm going to be having some paracetamol. I'm going to bed. Yeah, so that was brilliant. Yeah, but Lance has said, we're doing the new stadium thing is coming. We don't have a timeline. What we do have, though, is sort of confirmation that the London game is coming back. So Matt Hardy of the City AM did an interview with Lance Bradley today, in which Lance Bradley states that we will be doing another London game at least once a year. Shout out to Lance Bradley, by the way, for immediately shutting down Matt Hardy for what he felt was a disingenuous headline and misleading, trying to make it sound like the Ospreys were migrating to London. We've been through the merger talk so many times now, and it's just so frustrating and so annoying. And it's not fun for anyone, especially for the job security of professional players. So fair play for him to come out and say that. And he's been very active on socials this week in and around that. Robbie, did you go to the London game?
I did, yeah. Days after getting back from France for the World Cup. I got back on a train back to London. Yeah, I thought it was a fantastic experience. I really enjoyed it. And being an English-based fan, as just mentioning, it's always something I've looked forward to. Since I've been 18 and since had the kind of free reign to do that. I've always looked forward to the Ospreys game in London each European season, and have travelled down. Obviously, the Saracens game last year, there was a huge travelling contingent, and Leicester likewise, and we kind of saw that again. And there was a lot of South Africans, a lot of them delighted because they won a World Cup a few days beforehand at that point. But you got a real sense of atmosphere and of it was a very different experience to being at the Swansea.com. And I enjoyed it a great deal. The way they really went all out to have, Welsh and South African street food vans around. They were handing out flags left, right, and centre. I've got one of them just to my side over here. It was a really fun experience, a really fun kind of trip out. If I were a London-based rugby fan who wasn't necessarily an Ospreys fan, I would be looking at that as something you can get excited about as a different kind of event to go to, which is something Lance Bradley says in the piece, that you've got to look to aim this to people who aren't just South Africans or Welsh based in London, but also for people who love watching good rugby, and you can potentially be looking at internationals. And Toby Booth made the point after the game before that he reckons they could have got another 4,000 or 5,000 if they'd held it on Saturday or Sunday rather than on a Friday night, but that was just how the fixtures fell. And
that was a general consensus, wasn't it? It was the Friday. I think the Friday bit killed it more than the not having internationals.
Yeah.
And obviously that's something that they will look to do a bit better. Is the Stoop the right place again, do you think?
The Stoop's a fantastic ground. The really important thing is supposedly the Ospreys made several times what they would have made holding the game at home, because Quinn's gave them a really good split on food and drink. And they sold more tickets than usual, thanks to the kind of novelty factor, thanks to the fact they can bring fans from elsewhere, and you had a decent number travelling down. And then the fact that they weren't paying the overheads that they have to when hosting games at Swansea.com in terms of ground share, in terms of ground split, etc. So the Ospreys made a very decent margin back and have probably set up a relationship there that they can go forward with, and they can probably agree similar terms with, which would be really promising. Twickenham's a nightmare to get to, but at least there are travel links there. it's, I think, easier to get to than the Stone X, everyone's favorite ground that looks like a university campus. And then when you start to look at others, you're looking at football grounds probably at others. And I think actually holding it at that ground, and maybe if they can organize it for a weekend where, say, that happens on the Saturday, Quins are playing on the Sunday, that'd be ideal. You can sell them as a kind of double. Maybe even if you've got the women's games taking place as well, that'd be fantastic. As having a full weekend of it.
Yeah, absolutely, and ultimately the planning has to be a bit better, and I think the URC will take that into consideration because they saw how much of a success it was, and it was a good game as well. The Ospreys v Sharks game, and it's not to say that you have to do it against a South African opposition. It just helps that there's a lot of South Africans in South London.
Yeah.
And again, as someone who's an English-based Ospreys fan now, you know, getting to Twickenham is a lot easier than getting to South Wales for me.
Yeah.
You know, it's one train to Clapham, and then I just have to go to Twickenham. You know, like it was really convenient. I'm gutted it was a Friday night and I couldn't go because I was in work. So yeah, it's happening. I think that the ones who got annoyed at the London game were really the more casual Ospreys fans who didn't get it. Like we put out the pod with ACJ, and he did a lot to dispel the myths. And actually, we had people telling us that we changed their minds and things like that. And actually having someone that's active as Lance Bradley will only further that. So yeah, I think we're in a much better position to say, yes, let's do the London game than we were maybe when it was announced in August. It was August because I was on holiday when it was announced. Sorry, I'm watching the under-18s again, right? It's the under-18s is back on. It's Scarlets versus Cardiff. And the most Welsh regional passage of players just happened. Scarlets have made a beautiful break up the field. They've gone to pass the ball inside. It's been slapped down for a definite yellow card, but the referee wasn't there because he's fallen over and he might have done his Achilles or something. So if that
hyper moment.
Well, wait, they're showing the replay now. See if he goes down. What happens? Yeah,
it's like Soccer Saturday. This
it is genuinely soccer. Oh, right, yeah, he's tripped over someone and has done his ankle. If that isn't the most Welsh regional rugby thing, I love rugby. The Cardiff physio is having to divert her attention from her own players to tend to Gareth Moore. Okay, let's move on to the game. This has been a podcast so far, definitely. So Ospreys 25, USA Perpignan 3. Crowd of 4,500, which obviously isn't great, but we've discussed, this is part of the reason why we need to get out. Dan Edwards kicked 2 penalties, converted 2 tries. A very, very quick man scored 2 tries himself, Iestyn Hopkins, building on his solid performances from last season before Keelan Giles danced his way around half of Perpignan to score. Just going through some stats for the game. One that's come up a lot is our lineouts. So Sam Harry played the full game, 21 lineouts, 100% success rate. That is mental, by the way. I think we held the record before.
Yeah. So only twice ever in the Challenge Cup has a team. Bear in mind, this is the Challenge Cup, so Yeah. But has a team thrown 20 or more lineouts and hit 100%. And the other one was also the Ospreys this season.
Against Montpellier.
So something went right that day.
So and that's the huge work done with Richard Kelly, who sorts a lot of that.
I think flies under the radar a bit.
He really does. And he did as a player as well.
Yeah, Booth obviously gets a lot of applause, deservedly so, and Duncan Jones for the work of the scrum. And I think Richard Kelly's work is underappreciated, and I think it's done a really fantastic job across the board. And I
I
think because
think
people have this narrative that Dewi Lake can't throw, they assume the Ospreys line
yes.
out shit, and that is not the case. That is not the case. It's been fantastic. The maul is obviously excellent, and a few people go, "Well, Duncan Jones must be doing the maul himself, or Toby Booth looking at himself." And I think Richard Kelly's work's been really underappreciated. I think he's done a fantastic job.
I think it's because we had a bit of a stuttering lineup last year that
Mm,
wasn't really consistent enough that we would have liked. The Richard Kelly, his work wasn't appreciated enough, especially around the mall. And then this year now, our lineup has been very good.
yeah,
And Lake has been since the Scarlets at home. His darts have been near perfect, and Yestin, you champion this quite a bit as well, don't you?
Yeah, he's had a very good. Well, since he's come back from the World Cup, I feel he's come in and played well. Obviously, you get the odd glimpse where maybe something does go wrong. Maybe the opposition reads it a little bit better than what
Yeah.
maybe in advance from like a previous line now, like what Rory Thornton did in Regend somehow. I don't really know how
Who?
that happened. Rory Thornton pinched a line out steal in Regend. I know everyone might have been watching Blue Planet at that point.
Yeah.
He managed to jump in front of Adam Beard and pinch line out ball. I really couldn't believe what I saw.
do you
But
think you went off and did horny tweets to celebrate that as well?
no clue.
Or
But
was I? It's just my favorite Roy Thornton moment. He had a period where he did like 3 games, Cardiff won, and he just went and started posting horny tweets, and like quote tweeting, like first trap Twitter accounts and being like, "Oh yeah, baby," to all of them, but only when Cardiff won. It was
What an odd
fantastic.
man.
What? Yes, absolutely. Sorry, yes, and continue. Sorry, I didn't mean to derail that.
I've lost track of every thought now. That's just a Thornton, really.
So did Rory Thornton, don't worry.
What was I? Line outs.
Yeah.
I think probably plaudits have to go to James Fender and Adam Beard as well. Obviously, you can do so much coaching and training. Nothing against Richard Kelly's work, by the way. You can do so much in training against your own team. But when you put it into action and go 21 from 21, plaudits have to go to the players on the field.
Well, you say that, but James Ratty won the most lineouts.
I was going to get on to him later on.
Yeah, I know you were, because me and you have been talking about him all week.
You've got Adam Beard is a fantastic lineout caller.
Yes.
And I think it was something I had a bit, and I don't think I did end up using it in a video over the World Cup on how much better Wales' lineout is when Beard's calling it compared to, David Jenkins is a very good player, obviously named captain of Wales this week. He's still working on the lineout calling. Whenever Wales have someone that isn't Adam Beard calling their lineouts, the percentage drops. And the Ospreys obviously have had Fender calling the lineouts points this season as well. But it's been really solid throughout, which is really promising. And I think obviously you've got him learning off Beard and having one of the best in the game at calling lineouts, which is a part of the game that I think gets under discussed and under kind of celebrated.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have wanked over Adam Beard plenty in past, and I shall do in future.
As someone who is involved in lineup calling at a very, very low level, it is hard. It is so, and you're doing that at the professional level. Again, I know we were playing against French carpet cleaners, but they're still there to win. And we have varied that line out a lot. And actually, you could see it at the tail end of last season as well. We do run a lot of trick plays, especially when we have Sam Parry. I've noticed this a lot. We run a lot of trick plays when we have Sam Parry. The best one being that one last year with Ethan Roots putting Dan Liddy in for the Dragons game. And he canters down the blind side, things like that. So yeah, Richard Kelly gets massive plaudits. Someone else who should get massive plaudits, who I think has been very, very good. Well, I say very, very good. He hasn't played in 12 months, but Will Hickey. So Will Hickey came back. It wasn't his first game back because he played for Swansea against New Bridgend, maybe.
It wasn't Newport because they played each other on Saturday.
No, Newport of the week. Was it Ponty? No, it wasn't Ponty.
No, it wasn't.
Anyway, he played against Swansea. He played for Swansea. But he came back for 12 months. He's had horrific injury problems for especially for a young man. 7 carries, lots of tackles, 2 turnovers, 1. Did miss 5 tackles. Did look a bit rusty. There was one where they broke down the blind side, and I just thought, oh, William. But yeah, he was really, really good. Really great to see him back, especially with all our injury woes. It's just nice to see him, fit and ready, and finger tape stocks are going up.
Through the roof.
I think the Hickey missed tackle you're on about, because as the Perpignan winger makes the break, Luke Davis attempts a diving ankle tap from nowhere and misses him. And then the Perpignan winger produces one of the best individual breaks and jump and chases I've ever seen. Thinking it's going to be one of the best tries I've seen for quite some time, only for him to drop the ball over the line.
You know who would have scored that? Ali Crossdale.
Good player.
Yeah, good player. Why isn't he playing today? Who else stood out for you in that game, Robbie?
Yeah, I mean, I think Dan Edwards needs a mention. It's a very different game to the previous week, where I think he'd been fantastic coming on against Cardiff, and obviously his cameos against Scarlets and so on. This is kind of the first time that we've seen him be given the reins in the game and just having a full go, because the game against Benetton, his previous start, he got injured quite early on in the first half. Here, he was given most of the game to try and settle. And I think the first 20 minutes, things weren't quite going his way. And this Perpignan team are a proper bunch of bastards. They were just niggly and horrible. I loved watching them. It's like you can take the team out the Pro Day dub, but you can't take the Pro Day dub out the team. Nemo Risolfe, their tight
head prop.
Mate,
the best yellow card I've ever seen in my life.
Phenomenal. And all game, he was just this kind of chaotic engine who, whenever he got the ball, he in the way props used to do in the 80s, where he literally put his head down and just ran without looking at where he was going. Just an absolute nuisance. And the scrum half, Sadik Demaché, who spent the entire game waiting offside, just slapping people's arms.
And looked so shocked every time he did it, as if he wasn't told at least twice.
And then when he got binned, and they had to take him off because we just don't trust him to not keep doing that. We don't expect referees to pick up on this.
It's brilliant. I absolutely love it.
But yeah, with the scale of bastard they're up against, Dan Edwards and Luke Davis really controlling and settling that game, I thought was very impressive. You mentioned, Fender, I thought had a great game as well. And for me, I think if I were handing out man of the match, and I were not, obviously Yeston Hopkins has the kind of big narrative moment. I thought he was fantastic, but Owen Watkin I thought was brilliant. I thought he was really, really great. Both attack and defense. The Ospreys defense looks so much more solid whenever it's him and Kieran, or whenever he's playing 13, I think really is the main thing. And obviously he was wearing 12 because of the last minute change, but he was playing 13, and he defensively is just so sound. Every decision is pretty much correct, really deserves this Wales recall, and also was really spotting things, ball in hand, his distribution. I just think he's been quietly really, really great for the Ospreys this season, and I think this was up there with the best he's played all year.
Yeah, and that plays into this sort of narrative that. So I will have a bit of a rant about Ospreys reverting to type, and we only score forward tries and we only score maul tries. We passed the ball 229 times this game, which is about 100 more than our average. And despite that, we still kicked the ball 28 times as well. Dan Edwards has only ever been given the reins, like you said, at Benetton, and the other one was at Dragons in pre-season, where it did not go well for him. That wasn't the game, and Booth said just wasn't the game for him. And like you said, we go back to Boothie Bingo, time in the saddle, then cameo appearances. The one against Cardiff would have given him a lot of confidence. And actually going into this game, I wasn't worried whatsoever of him controlling the game. And we did. I even put it in the group chat for Rap. I was like, we're passing the ball to our wingers. We barely do this. What is happening? Keelan Giles touched the ball more than any I don't think he has in about 3 seasons. And no wonder he dropped 4 of them. He received about 73 passes. You know, if you look at the stats, we didn't make many post-contact meters, and I knew that before the game because they were such a physical pack. They were really physical, but we had 9 line breaks. I can't remember the last time Ospreys had 9 line breaks. You know, so our discipline was good. 7 penalties conceded. Scrum percentage of 88. On the face of it, and you can only play what's in front of you, right? You can really only play what's in front of you, and we did. And you know, we're in this position where we're gutted we didn't get the bonus points, and that's what we are. But this team wants to play. They want to play for each other. You know, Yeston Hopkins probably sums up that. You know, he's off the academy. You know, he's one of the academy boys. Comes in really good, really physical. You know, he's so. I didn't realize how quick he was. He takes that ball off the foot of the Perpignan player, and he's gone. You know, it's just really refreshing to see, because that could have been a banana skin game for us, and we all said that in the Eyrie group chat as well, that this could, especially after that first half, when you know it's got to 40 minutes, it's still 0-0, but they're knocking on our line, or 3-0, whatever it was. And you're like, yeah, this could be a banana skin game for us here.
It's the sort of game where I feel like a year ago, certainly 2 years ago, we would have thrown an interception pass, or we would have let off one occasion. There would have been something small that happened that would have turned the game entirely. It's a sort of game where if we were going to win it a year ago or so, it would have been by a tiny margin. It would have been late on. And the games there are still games like that. You look at the Glasgow game that I think keeps coming back and haunting us a bit, but that is against one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the league, right? And we've progressed to a point where the games that were struggles a couple of years ago are now reasonably comfortable wins that we arm wrestle our way into winning. I feel like there has been a really clear sense of progression season on season under Toby Booth, and we are seeing each year the Ospreys get better at winning these games, and the caliber of games they're winning and the way they're seeing them out is getting incredibly impressive. And as you say, this was a really tough team. They were really difficult to break down, and yet you came away with 3 tries, and you know there was a maul chance 5 meters out where Luke Davis steps into touch, or there was Yeston Hopkins dropping the ball and a hat trick opportunity. There were 2 chances, I think, clean cut to take the bonus point, and we can be gutted we didn't take it. And that never would have been the case a year ago, or even potentially at the start of the season. Like, I feel like they're really kicking on. And despite having, you know, by the end of that game, about 4 players left and all of them under the age of 15, it was, just really encouraging.
Yeah. Yeston, how did you feel? Do you want to do your James Ratty piece now?
He was very good, I thought. I thought he was good against Cardiff and Bridgend as well. You know,
I agree.
He kept himself quite busy. You know, there's quite often where he'd be standing in the backfield from a goal line dropout, except for one exception where Morgan Moss ran through everyone and scored. That happened again. And but then again on Friday night it was a bit different, because obviously there wasn't many goal line dropouts for him to run onto for starters. And it was just quietly going around the park, doing his business, you know, jumping up an extra liner option, which we have seen countless times with Rhys Davis at 6, and we've seen it again now with Ratty. And I thought he just went around the park and did a good job. You know, strong carrying game as well, which obviously helps as a back rower. And I actually want to give a mention to Matt Prothery. I thought he was quietly good as well.
Yes,
and Hopkins scored the brace and Keelan Giles scored a really good try. But I thought Prothero had a good game. His first game coming back since Boxing Day, and I thought he was solid. You know, he's getting involved here and there, and he looked good. And I really wanted to say how good Owen Watkin was, but we already discussed that.
You're a big Owen Watkin advocate.
It just felt really weird seeing them play in the wrong position because their shirt numbers were flipped. I was thinking this just doesn't seem right, but very often you see Watkin come in as a first receiver, and you see it quite a lot. It's maybe not off first phase, maybe off second or third. Well, second phase is normally a forward carry, but maybe third or fourth phase. when they're coming back against the grain, that you normally see Watkin there, and he's either popping it off to a forward or playing it out the back to someone like Dan Edwards. So it's just, that little detail, and Watkins defensively sound as a 13, and I think he really did deserve that recall back into the Welsh squad.
It was something that really stood out about me to Dan Edwards watching in the 20s, was how confident he is in that kind of the boot positions, they call it, that space behind the kind of first receiver. And Owen Watkin, the way he's playing is really allowing Dan Edwards to buy a lot of time for himself and to make big decisions and give great passes and, kind of weigh things up, which, especially as a young 10 still learning to play at this level, really important and really allowing him to kind of kick on. And hopefully we see more time in the saddle, Boofy Bingo. And just like Owen Watkin, I think, is really, really helping out with those two young halfbacks kind of learning the game as they go.
I think we saw a bit of Kieran that we haven't seen in a while, or if ever. He goes around on that outside arc, and you're like, oh, hello. I haven't seen this before. And then he's gassing people. He can't kick, like we know this, and we love him for it.
It's beautiful that Jack Morgan is a better kicker than Kieran Williams. Like, he is a back who funts.
He gets on this outside arc, and he does some really nice, he does some really nice work. You're like, hello, where has this been for 6 years? Like, since you made your debut, like. Why aren't we getting Kieran Williams on the outside arc? Because he gets to a point like, what's he going to do at the end? No one's going to tackle him. He's just going to bounce you off and spit in your eye or something. I was really impressed by Kieran stepping into a role that maybe Dan Edwards can unlock in a way. And you talk about Dan Edwards in the 20s, and I went back and watched the Wales v Japan game in the 20s. That Morgan Morse, Mark Orders white, wank train game. But it really says that Dan Edwards was a much better player when he has Bryn Bradley playing at 12.
Yeah.
And it's almost sort of in that mold of what Watkin does is allowing him to give that time. It's what makes Smith look so good at Quins, because he has Esterhazen. Esterhazen gives him that time to be so good. So look, I'm all for it, and I think we're in a really healthy position at 10 that we haven't been in for a long, long time. I'm not saying
Sam Davis and Dan Biggett.
I'm not saying that we're at world-class position because Stephen Myler's not here. But that we have 3 10s who, when they're on form, all have different game plans, but I'm all equally as confident in. I'm so confident Jack Welsh now that he come on and close a game. I'm so confident that Dan Edwards could maybe kick on, start a game. I'm confident that Owen Williams can, control that game. It's a really good position to be in, and a really exciting one, actually. And obviously, we're not the finished article yet at 9 and 10, so there's so much more to go. Any more on that game?
Yeah, well, just like you mentioning Jack Welsh, I thought the way he played when he came on was perhaps not ideal for a team chasing a bonus point late on.
Yes.
But a masterclass in shutting a game down when you're narrow lead ahead, which also very promising, real lessons learned from Owen Williams, I think, and not the sort of thing you would have been doing a year ago. So at the time, I was slightly frustrated because you're looking at the bonus point and you want to get the extra point on the table. But looking back on it, actually, I think showed a real sign of progress again from him, similar to Dan Edwards, because we forget how young he is and how green he is, and how far he's come on in a year as well. So across the board, yes, and Hopkins you haven't really mentioned as well. Keelan Giles' try, exceptional, really great work.
Oh, really? That was like 2017-esque Keelan Giles.
Yeah,
dancing through people, and again, really good for him. And I feel like Toby Booth puts him in that environment where a lot of players will be really gutted if they don't get a Wales call. And I feel like Toby would just say, put Zara on him, say, no, just keep playing the way you are.
Yeah.
And it'll come. And if it doesn't come, you'll have done your best. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. There's been a lot said about the Tom Rogers selection, and we'll come on to Wales selection in a minute. But Keelan Giles brilliant. Yester Hopkins, we've been looking for that maybe solid foundation after Nagy got injured, and we've chopped and changed at 15 a bit. Walsh has done a fine job especially in them trickier conditions. But realistically, you want a Iestyn Hopkins there, don't you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Speaking of Iestyn,
Oh, here we go.
talk us through the Ospreys contingent that have been selected for Wales, and why have they been selected?
Oh, that adds something. So first of all, we got Gareth Thomas, who's undoubtedly Gatland's first choice loose head. Let's be real. Was continued on. I think he's played quite well over recent weeks. I thought he had an absolute stormer against Benetton in the league in Europe. Sorry, where we obviously scored that try, and he just kicked on. All right, maybe the Welsh derby's probably not as dominant as he'd like in the scrum on those two occasions, but he's still probably, well, for Gatland, the best loose head in Wales at the moment. And that's a quarter of it done. I'm 25% of the way through. He's been named into the Welsh squad. Moving on, we got Adam Beard because, well, he's Adam Beard, isn't he? That,
Yeah.
a Gatland favourite, I feel. And he's probably going to be. Well, now with David Jenkins being named captain and how good Will Rowlands was at the World Cup, it adds a bit of selection debate involved, especially in the second row.
Which is really healthy, by the way.
Unless you move
if you're a Wales fan.
Unless you move one of them to 6 and try and emulate what the Ospreys are doing with, like you see with Ratty and Davis. But yeah, Adam Beard's in as expected. I did have him down as captain, so I'm a little bit disappointed that prediction didn't really come in. But that's it for the pack because everyone else is injured. I feel.
Yeah.
I think that's it. And then you've got a centre pairing of George North and Owen Watkin. George North, of course, many a cap, over 100 of them. And I think he'll be there as ever in the Six Nations. And it's good to have someone like George North in the squad to provide, plenty of experience towards the younger players in the squad. Someone like Mason Grady, for example, who's got a handful of caps and will obviously learn a lot. And Owen Watkins back. We've obviously touched on this just now.
Yeah.
And I do think Owen Watkins has deserved the recall. I always have a bit of an agenda. Why can't anyone keep him in one position?
Yeah.
And mainly because Wayne Pivac did it quite a bit of chopping and changing, and then saying, "Oh, I actually want Owen Watkins as 13." So Booth plays him at 13 at the start of the season, and by the time the autumn came up a couple of years ago, he was playing at 12. So that doesn't really add up, but I feel like he's developed on his game, that he's okay in both positions in a sense. Obviously, he's more defensively helpful at 13 compared to 12. And he's certainly deserved his recall. And that's it. Done.
Yeah, that is it. And before we go on to that big talking point of just 4 Ospreys in the Wales squad, I have a hot take, and there's a lot of stuff flying around that if Johnny Williams wasn't banned, he'd be in the squad over Watkin. I don't think he will. I think genuinely that Watkin has played himself back into the squad.
Yeah.
I do think he's not been perfect this season, but he's been a damn sight a lot better than people have made out to. I think Mark Jones coming in has almost like rejuvenated him a bit. Because, right, so Ospreys are a team that thrive off defensive pressure, right? So defensive pressure causes turnovers. That's where we thrive, right? That comes from a defensive line led by Owen Watkin. And you look at the games we've played and look at what Johnny Williams is doing. And I do have it out for Johnny Williams because I'm not a fan. I've never seen the hype beyond a club player. I think he's genuinely played his way into that squad.
Yeah. I think every game I've seen Owen Watkin play this season, I would say across the board, is better than the best game I've ever seen Johnny Williams play. And I might have missed the odd game for the Scarlets where he was exceptional. I don't rate Johnny Williams at all. I think he's a perfectly fine club player. As a test player, I think he's looked slow and ponderous, and he's looked like his speed of 4 and speed of kind of execution isn't up to standard. And And he has made stupid decisions across the board, be it, handing Jack Walsh that try at Parker Scarlets a few weeks ago, be it that red card. I think he's physically an international player. I don't think his kind of speed and reading of the game is there. To be, very brutal about it. Owen Watkin had it last year, wasn't himself, wasn't his best, and didn't, he missed out on the World Cup training squad, and I think that was a fair reflection of his season. He was injured a lot. He didn't look quite comfortable anywhere whenever he was back. And, Johnny Williams had a perfectly good year for the Scarlets, got in ahead of him. This year, I think Owen Watkin has been across the board. He's been playing week in, week out, unlike, the Scarlets have been chopping and changing their centres every single week, seemingly, and, bringing in different players and different combinations and moving players from 12 to 13 and so on and so forth. Watkin has played 13 with Kieran Williams, and every now and again he's had to move to 12 when Kieran's been injured, with George North in at 13. He's played both extremely well, but particularly at 13, he's been absolutely fantastic. The way he's read the game, the way he's understood it, the way he's shut things down, particularly defensively, as you say. Since Mark Jones has come in, he's like a different player. Toby Booth's mentioned he's defensive captain, and he's really taken on more of a leadership role this year. And I think it's just rejuvenated him. It's just changed him as a player. And I couldn't be more made up for him. He was the kind of guy I wanted to see in most. Obviously, I'd be delighted if Morgan Morris got a call up, because he deserves a cap so much. He's been injured over the Christmas derbies and then Europe, so it makes it difficult for Gatland to perhaps pick him when he hasn't been injured. And even if he's due back by the first game, you kind of can't take a risk on someone when they're unproven. I get it. So after that, you're looking at Owen Watkin, and I think he absolutely deserves his call-up. I know there's some hyperbole at the start of this ramble, but yeah, I think he's been fantastic.
So Owen Watkin's been around for a while, right? I'm sorry, I'm just looking. He made it so he's directly a year older than me. We've got the same birthday. He's 27 now. Which, if you'd have asked me how old Owen Watkin is, I would have said he's eternally 24.
Yeah.
But he made his debut 2015, 2016. But as those fans of Squidge Rugby will know, he didn't. That 17-18 season was his season, wasn't it, Robbie? Where we particularly Saracens away, I remember he was very good. Just sort of the way we were playing then, and was it Tandy and Clark that season?
Yeah,
because we attacked really well, but and then he broke into the Wales squad after that. And then you look at that, he was a linchpin for that a very good Wales team. And was he just, no, he wasn't the starting centre for the 2019 Grand Slam, because that would have been Parks, but
he was coming off the bench.
He was coming off the bench. And
every game, I think, in that 6 minutes. I think he started against Italy and came off the bench in all the other games.
And yeah, I just think he's a really, really good player, like a solid player. And that, at 20, he's 27 now. So, but he's one of them ones who feels like he'll stick around at the Ospreys forever. And I'm fine with that. He's an Andrew Bishop. He's basically Andrew Bishop from Brinketti.
Yeah, he's been obviously played his 100th game the other week. Proper servant, the sort of guy that will retire an absolute club legend. And if he does leave, it'll be a really sad day, because he's got that coming and lined up for him.
He does have Pro D2 written all over him, man.
That was just the Perpignan forwards getting at him.
I want to see the man play for like Breathe or someone like that, and just fight everyone. Let's talk about it, shall we? The elephant in the room. 4 Ospreys were chosen for a Wales squad. To quote Peep Show, 4 Ospreys, 4. It's unprecedented. Let's get out of the way. Injuries, okay? There are certain players who we know for certain would be in, particularly Jack Morgan and Dewi Lake, which says to me that Dewi Lake, his injury is a bit more serious than it seems. It might still be low grade, but it's enough to keep him out. And in a way, it helps, because they don't need to look at Dewi Lake. Gatland clearly knows enough about Dewi to say, you're my co-captain, you're going to be in the Wales squad for the next 10 years.
And
it's fine to have one off.
he did say in the press conference that Lake would have been captain if not for the injury.
Yeah.
So that was lined up. Yeah, you presume that's precautionary. Nicky Smith feels also pretty nailed on.
Yeah, who the loose heads called up? Domachowski,
Kemsley Matthias.
Yeah, look, I have my opinions on Kemsley Matthias, and they are well known. What's worrying is the fact that we're down to. I think Domachowski's a very good player. I think he'll be Wales' starting loose head. I think he has a lot of potential. And then you're looking at Domachowski and who's the other one? Gareth Thomas. It'd be Gareth Thomas and Domachowski. There we are.
Yeah.
That's fine. But you would have assumed that Nicky Smith would have been in there.
Yeah.
Especially knowing that Rhys Carey seemingly wasn't considered, let alone
selected.
Be injured or whatever. Again, we talked about hooker, tight end, the Tom Boats debate reigns on. I'm not asked either way. If it was going to happen, it would have happened by now. Gatland clearly wants to go younger, and that's okay. I'm a big advocate for Archie Griffin, and he's one who, if he doesn't break into Bath, and I am Toby Booth and Duncan Jones, I'm going up to his house with a pint of cash and being like, "You're going to come to the Ospreys, and we're just going to have three very large men in that tight head spot at all times, like Ben Warren, Rhys Henry, and him. Would be brilliant." Then you look at who are the Ospreys that would have got the call up, right? Morgan Morris is the big one. If he wasn't injured, would he have been called up?
That's the question, isn't it? It felt like this was finally his time, with Faletau injured, with the start of a new cycle. And then you wonder if it slipped away. Mackenzie Martin coming and really deserving his call up, as did Alex Mann.
Yeah.
All of those players that have been called up across the board deserve their shot. And obviously Wainwright is the kind of incumbent. He'll likely be the starter. But you have a couple of young kind of apprentice types you can bring through over the course of a season, as well as James Botham, who I rate very highly as well. I wonder whether he would have got in ahead of one of Mann or Mackenzie Martin, one of the MMs. But it's a shame. I am surprised. I was kind of expecting Gatland to go full Gatland and call it Morgan Morse and then say we want to have a look at him, because that's the thing he always says.
Yes, then we talked about this in the build. There was a lot of rumours coming out that Morgan Morse was being called up, and Gatland was in Ospreys camp a lot during the week. So in the promo video that the Ospreys always do, which are always great, Gatland and Howley are not only at training, they're on the sidelines watching training. So they're clearly looking at people in particular. Clearly didn't look very fucking hard, man, because he didn't choose any of us. And spoiler alert, speaking to Lance Bradley, who has an existing relationship with Alex King, the whole Wales coaching team were at the game on Friday.
Right.
Again, clearly enjoying free hospitality and not watching the game. Or they must have been in the physio room talking to all our players. So the big one for me is Morris. Was he going to look at Morris? Part of me says that he wasn't going to. I think it would have happened by now. And the other part of me says he might get called up in the summer. Take him to South Africa. Who are the other ones that could have been called up?
That's my kind of worry about Morgan Morris, is if he doesn't get a cap by the end of this year, I worry it won't happen.
Yeah.
And he really deserves caps, I'm really invested in that.
Just
now,
one.
But
Luke Morgan has a cap. Luke Morgan has 2 caps for Wales.
Sam Cross has a cap for Wales.
Yeah, against the All Blacks.
He got pulled off at half time, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah. It's the same with Giles as well.
Yeah.
The Giles versus Tom Rogers debate at the minute. Obviously, Wales have lost a winger to the NFL and lost Faye Waboso to England. So you're down 2 wingers. So you're really looking at Rio Dyer and Josh Adams, you're starting wingers. Okay. Gatland has said he actually he likes to look at Tom Rogers at 15. I mean, I quite look at Tom Rogers on the bench or in passing training. It's really, I was surprised he got the call up, but I'm also surprised because there's no one else. Conby has not played at all. Owen Lane's shit. He's not. He's a club player.
Yeah.
There's no one else at the Dragon. You're not calling up one of the Rosser brothers. And you're just thinking like Giles has been in red hot form, scoring some good tries, and he scores that on Friday, and you're like, well, what more do you want from Gatland win?
But I guess it's that. I guess it is height.
Yeah.
As a pure rugby player, don't know why you wouldn't. I would look at Keelan Giles as a better player than Tom Rogers, especially on the evidence of this season. But in terms of how you can fit them into a game plan and build a game plan around them, I understand why you go for someone like Tom Rogers. But I don't, it comes down to what are you doing and what are you selecting. Giles' defense, the way he's improved on kick chase and so on has been fantastic. Rogers seems a bit like a blank slate that Gatland's hoping to mold a bit, I think. And it was probably, you're looking at if he was too early for Yeston Hopkins.
Yeah, very much too early for Hopkins.
I think he's someone you have a look at and you have in a kind of 50-man wider. You probably bring him for one training session in the way they've done in the past.
He plays against Japan where we rely on like a Nicky Robinson drop goal to win.
But Hopkins feels early, but he's sort of, could make it there in the future. Someone that can play wing and fullback. And at that point, you are kind of like, right, were we looking for a third Rosser brother that perhaps, has something? Or were you, trying to magic something else up? I don't know. Toby Fricker could have been a contender if he'd stay fit, as a kind of larger
Hopkins
winger.
is a really interesting one, actually, because he was the understudy to Cam Winnett at under 20s level. And Hopkins has a very, very underrated under 20s highlight. He obviously under 20s is a lot different of a game, right? The way it's played. But you look at him like he was really, really good under 20, and Cam Winnett was like shit hard under 20s, right? That series out in Italy, they played against when Wales went much further than they had any right to. Winnett was very good, and Hopkins was a really good understudy there. He's definitely one you look at like in a wider training squad, because Cam Winnett just does have all that fundamentals of the game, and I'm really glad that Winnett has got called up. What worries me then is I actually go back to the back row, and I'm like, I think Alex Mann again really deserves that call up. He's a workhorse. He's a bit like what Ethan Roots was for us, in that all he does is he hits people, makes tackles. He's gnarly. He's a bastard to play against. And you sort of look at it that, yeah, I get why you're called up, but we're also a bit thin at 6. And we don't have, he's the only out and out 6 in that squad.
I also think there's something in the way the Ospreys have built a squad this season, which has largely injury enforced, chopped and changed a lot. But they feel like a team and players are plugging in quite easily, So you see Tipper get injured, Jack Morgan plugs in, Jack Morgan get injured, Harry Deves plugs in, Harry Deves gets injured, Dewi Lake plugs in. They're kind of able to just bring these players in and change players, interchange. As we mentioned, there's 3 fly halves. You've had Luke Scully play there as well. So you've kind of had 4-10 slot in, and they look broadly the same. And maybe that does lead playing in a kind of cohesive system that very much feels like its kind of own environment and own living organism. Maybe some of that leads to you noticing the individuals less and looking more to the Scarlets, who are reliant on big moments from individual players. The Eston Lloyd, the Johan Lloyds of the world, and Sam Costello's and Tom Rogers, who have produced individually great moments in a team that is otherwise struggling, where the Ospreys are going broadly pretty well and maintain consistent standards. But it means that fewer players are spiking and standing out. We're obviously in the top percentile of fans in that we're doing this bloody podcast. But the average person who's watching the Ospreys a few times in the URC as a Welsh fan is probably looking at them and going, oh, that Fender's a promising young player. And otherwise, there's probably not as many players really standing out because the system is working well. And I wonder if that's hurt them a little bit.
It's a really, really good point. And I was really upset yesterday.
Mm.
So for context, I was waiting on a phone call to find out if I got a job, right?
Oh.
Or I'd got another job yesterday.
Oh, congratulations.
And, well, I didn't get the. I did, but I didn't get the job. It's a really weird thing. I'll talk about it off there.
That's fine. Yeah.
But I was like, so I'm in two minds about that. Then the Zamet news dropped first. So I'm essentially like, what the fuck? So I text a certain Gloucester rugby player who I'm good friends with, and I'm like, how did you know about this? And he was like, no, we only found out on Sunday evening. And then so that's happened. The Wales squad drops, and I genuinely thought it was a joke squad. I was like, no, 4 players. And then she sort of goes through that stages of denial, grief, anger, whatever. And I'm there like, fucking 11 Cardiff. Like, Evan Lloyd, who the fuck is Evan Lloyd? Or like, Kenzie Matthias and things like this. And they're like, but actually having talked it out with you guys, with like me and Yestin talk, and we have our little Ospreys group with some other players, other people, sorry. If we get a bit of good fortune and some injuries come back, like your Frickers, your Don Morrises, your Will Griffs, you're hoping that Garen Phillips is a short-term thing, whatever. If we get some of these players back, your Tippericks, right? Ulster and Munster suddenly look like really winnable games. Or at least you look at Ulster and you think, oh, we might get 2 points out of that. And then you look at Munster at the Swans.com stadium, you're like, hello, yes, please. Like a Munster without their internationals and Munster with 800 injuries and and it's literally just Harry Deems punching John Hodnett all night. Like which I'd pay for that. Like I'd physically pay for that. But we have to look at the alternative, not the alternatives, the positives that could come out of this. Is that we ride this storm now. We've got 1 game left of a 13-game block, right? The players come back. We get your Tippericks back, we get your Morrises back, whatever. I'm looking at that squad that goes into Ulster and Munster, and I'm like, yes, please. And then when I look at the players that Cardiff and particularly Scarlets are losing, their games in that period look a lot worse. and all of a sudden we're like, now, playoffs looked attainable. Now they look like really reachable. Like they are in with a grasp. Do you feel the same way, Yestin, as well?
Yeah, I do. I think that's what I kind of mentioned in all of Tuesday. If every Ospreys player that wasn't named in the squad and they're currently injured, if all of them were back for the Ulster game, you're thinking this is a really good chance here against to get a win against an Irish side. You got someone like Nicky Smith. Okay, we don't know how long his injury is, but if he were to come back, that would be a big boost. Even if he just came back for the Munster game. Someone like Alex Cuthbert that we haven't seen all season. There's been a couple of rumours about him coming back quite soon. Tiprick is set to be back. He's back in training. Kieran Williams is probably out in South Africa somewhere. And, obviously now he's back playing. That's a key cog to the Osprey system. And you're thinking, if you can add all these players back in, someone like Morgan Morris as well, another key player to come back in. And you're thinking these 2 games are really winnable. Edinburgh away as well, who aren't exactly firing at the moment either, who will be down a few of the Scottish players. You're thinking, do you know what? There's a real good chance that we can nick a couple of points from that Edinburgh games and put some real focus on the 2 home games. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But if it does happen, you're thinking top 8 looks really good now. And there's a big game against the Lions at home right after the Six Nations. And that's another big one before the South Africa tour and Leinster away, all that nonsense. And you go to that Lions game off the back of, if you go into that game off the back of 3 heavy defeats, you're thinking, oh, this is going to be, a bit of a tough outing. But if you go off the back of that with maybe a win or 2, or maybe a couple of points here and there, you've got a real good chance of maybe even sneaking into that top 8.
So just for context, our next games, sorry, Robbie,
No, go on.
are Ulster at home. So we got the Lions away in the Challenge Cup. We're through to the next round, which we wanted anyway, and we will target it if we get Sharks in Durban or we get, if Montpellier beat Benetton, I will buy a Montpellier shirt because that means we most likely get Gloucester away, which would be, we'll do a live pod for it,
we'll spend all week in Gloucestershire doing a succession of live pods.
Cheese rolling. So we've got Ulster at home on the 18th of February, winnable. Edinburgh away, 1st of March. Depends on what state that Edinburgh squad is in. After last year, I've got a bit of PTSD.
Yeah.
And then Munster at home, and then Lions at home. That block of 4, it's not out of the way Ospreys are playing, and that system we talked about earlier, Robbie, where no one's shining but everyone's on the same threshold. It's not out of the reach to say that's 3 out of 4.
Absolutely. So to make the playoffs in the URC, right, you're looking at winning 10 games. The target, the only team to ever win 10 games and not make it was the Ospreys season before last. 10 wins basically gets you in, providing you pick up some bonus points along the way. We've got 5 bonus points already, which we got 6 that season. We didn't make it in. So, 1 or 2 more bonus points and it should be okay, providing you get those 10 wins, right? We're on 5 at the minute, and we have 5 home games remaining. 4 home games remaining, which means basically, right, you're looking at 2 of them are regions. So the Dragons, Lions, both outside the international window. So both games are target. Hopefully the Lions are in between South African derbies and European knockout games. So hopefully they take that as their rest week. And they're in a reasonable position. And they go, well, we'll just rest all of our, big players there. You're then looking at, right, Judgment Day could potentially be that away win. If you can then target these 2 games against the Irish teams as 2 home games to try and get those wins, or Edinburgh. So Ulster and Munster are each missing 7 players in the Ireland squad, which are significant losses, and they are players in key positions across the board. So you're looking at, both their halfbacks being missing for Munster. Very decent chance that both of them are going to be in the 23 regularly, so probably won't be back for that game immediately afterwards. As well as, their captain in Peter O'Mahony now being the Irish captain, and perhaps their front row still in reasonable shape, but, I think it's only Jeremy Lockman that's going.
Ollie Jaeger's gone as a panelist.
Traveling panelist, training panelist, whatever that means. But then you're looking at
don't have like a Dogbo and players like that, don't they? A Dogbo's out for the season.
They've got a billion injuries.
Yeah.
You're suddenly looking at that as a game to target. And as you say, Ulster have been incredibly up and down this season. They've been either brilliant and absolutely on fire, or really just falling over and not being right. Again, they're going to be missing a lot of their really key players, Ian Henderson's, Nick Timoney, who feels weird every time I see him in an Ireland squad, but is a brilliant club player. Stuart McCloskey. If all of those are missing, suddenly that is targetable. And Edinburgh, which is a game, when I looked at the scope of the season, right? I figured we had the 2 games in South Africa. There was 2 games away. You had Connacht away, Leinster away, and Edinburgh away were all basically unwinnable games you had to write off, and you had to, from the other 13 games, scrape together those 10 wins. And actually, suddenly, Edinburgh have 13 players currently in the Scotland squad. And that is huge. That is basically
and one of
the
those
entire
is
spine.
not Javan Sebastian.
You have the entire spine of their team gone. They're an injury or 2 away from missing the entire starting 15. There are positions in which they're missing their first and second choice players. It's kind of enormous, and suddenly that opens things up. If this is an Osprey squad that gets a lot of those players back, there's a decent chance if a Dewi Laker and Nicky Smith does come back to fitness, and Gatlin doesn't call them up immediately because he wants them to get a bit of game time for the Ospreys, suddenly we could be going in missing 4 players, because Owen Williams is still going to be there. He should be back. Hopefully Justin Tipuric will be back. You're looking pretty much across the board. You're going to be missing the 4 players with Wales and Jack Morgan, who's out until after the Six Nations.
Yeah.
It suddenly starts to feel like you've got a strong team and you've got a strong chance of targeting those 3 games. And then at that point, if you're on 8 wins with 2 to win and like 5 games left of the season, the playoffs is really in our hands. You can win the 2 derbies or target that Lions game, and the 2 trips to South Africa are kind of write-offs. Get any points you can. I've waffled a lot, but like this, obviously disappointing for the players individually, but as an Ospreys fan, this is not that bad. There's a silver lining at least.
And yes, then you look at the teams we're facing, right? We've got Munster in this period. They're in 10th. So we beat them. They're not coming up above us. So we got Ulster, who are in 4th, but we're only 3 points behind them. So actually, we closed the gap. Realistically, we're not going out to South Africa and getting points. So Stormers and Bulls are 7th and 6th, respectively. So you imagine they're going to shoot up during this window and probably take that 3 and 4 spot. Then you look at Lions. Well, they're in 11th, but Lions has been a bit of a banana skin game for us. Again, you like Robbie said, you're hoping that they choose that as their rest week. It's not bad. And then we play the Dragons at home, which historically has been a very high scoring affair for us. I don't want to jinx it because I hate playing the Dragons. But at home, it's generally been quite a happy hunting ground. And then if we go into that last day just having secured playoff rugby and not having to worry we're not going to drop out and we go against Cardiff, I'm not asked. Do you know what I mean? If we go into that game and we're like, playoff rugby is all but secured, we only need a point. So I'd be sitting back in my, but I'd also be like, Christ, we've been so much better this season than we've had probably any right to be.
Yeah. And
I know we, on paper, probably have the best squad out of the 4 regions. But to still get that result, Cardiff still have a very good squad and they're playing a very good brand of rugby, but can't buy a win. The things like that, the Scarlets on paper have a good squad. There's just not clicking there and things like that. So from what started as a negative with having 4 lads in the Wales squad, from having, if you look where we were at the start of the World Cup, it was 13, for fuck's sake, in a 33-man squad. Obviously, that changed because of transfers and stuff. And we ended up with 6. It presents an opportunity, and actually, Booksy Bingo finding a way. It's a real opportunity for us. Is that it for the Wales chat and debate? I think it is. I think we've gone through that in a really respectful way. Good luck to everyone.
Good luck to everyone.
Look, yeah, it's going to be a tough Six Nations. We're in transition, but fuck it, we ball. Also, I want to give a big shout out to someone who has been called up to the England squad. I feel like a proud dad, Mr. Ethan Roots. I am a big Ethan Roots fan. I was when we signed him, and he made his debut against Cardiff and gave away like 3 stupid penalties. And I'm like, I love you so much. And every game he was one of them ones that we, like the Sam Underhill thing, he grew every game, and he was just so. And when he left, you're like, Christ, yeah, you're good, and you're going to be good for Exeter. At no point did I think he was England good. But then, and I'm like, it makes complete sense. This is exactly what England want. He carries well. He hits everything. He's a leader. And you're like, yeah, fair play to him. He's worked his balls off to get to where he is. And he's a nice guy as well. Fair play to him. And a huge congrats to him. A huge congrats to Dav Jenkins as well, being captain.
Yeah.
Obviously never been involved in the Ospreys setup, ever. Or very, very limited, but he's still a Porthcawl boy. He's still part of the region, and we're going to claim him before Cardiff do. Let's move on to the Lions away. Christ, we could have done well at this game. So, like I said at the top of the pod, the boys are out there in Johannesburg at the minute. Good news: George North has flown, Kieran Williams has flown. No word on who else. It'd be interesting to see which fringe players have flown. We're looking at like a Jack Regan. You assume like a Will Hickey may start in this, things like that. So Jack Regan, is we're going to see like an Alex Ashton off the bench, maybe Cameron Jones. No, not that one. The other one, the prop might have gone out. Things like that. So it'd be really interesting, and it's a free hit because actually, if Montpellier beating Benetton is unlikely, but would still be hilariously fun.
Yeah,
Benetton may choose to rest up for this one, actually, because they sailed through, haven't they?
Yeah,
they're 3 from 3.
Yeah, they battered Newcastle last week, didn't they?
Yeah, so Montpellier are 2 from 3.
Or
3 from 3.
Montpellier 3 from 3. They're on
So
14
actually,
points. Benetton on 11 points. Whoever wins that wins the group.
So so Montpellier should go full noise for this.
Yeah, if Montpellier win this, they finish as presumably they should. Yeah, if they win, they finish as top seed overall, regardless of getting a bonus point or not. Whereas if basically it'll guarantee them a home tie. If Benetton win it, they will win the group, but probably depending on bonus point situation, probably finishes the third the bottom seed of the top seeds of the group winners. So that all depends. The way I kind of went through all of the fixtures in my head, just kind of going, what's a likely result for all of them? That is the one that feels the most undecided and the one that has the biggest deciding factor on things. If most results go the way you'd expect them to go, then you're kind of relying on that and the Sharks against the Dragons is the other one that could swing things. But you're probably looking at the Ospreys finishing as if they win the game, which is very unlikely with the state of this, the situation they're in. But it would be the most find a way Boothism thing ever achieved if they do. Then they're looking at a home game against one of the teams dropping down from the Champions Cup. So you're looking at Bristol, Bayonne potentially,
Racing 92.
Racing 92. Good luck. But if they lose the game, they're probably the most likely scenario is they're looking at whoever finishes the second seed, the second or third seed of the group winners, which is looking like the Sharks, Gloucester, and potentially, whichever of Benetton or Montpellier comes away with it. So if Montpellier win, we're probably
It's a really you want Gloucester away out of that one, don't you?
Absolutely.
That's the most winnable, and probably the most fun. The Lance Bradley derby, who it's like a Money in the Bank match. Whoever wins gets custody of Lance Bradley. You don't really want the Sharks away in Durban. No. Equally, it would be hilarious to host like a Bristol, like seeing Harry Thacker in all his glory, but I don't want to see the superstars of Bristol. I want to see like James Dunn or like James Williams. That's the proper Bristol. That's the Bristol that would have played in the champ. It's a really tough one, and actually, I'm really looking forward to that. If Montpellier win, and we're like, we could have Gloucester here. If we could pick up a point in the Lions, because Gloucester, not only for the Anglo Welsh shit, but it is our genuinely best chance to win a knockout game.
Yeah. It feels like the kind of game that this Ospreys team wins is Gloucester away in the last 16,
Yeah.
Like it's a big statement win in a big famous club. I was trying to think, when's the last time we played Gloucester? You're probably going back a long, long time.
Did we play them in a pre-season game?
Okay, in a competitive game, because I think it's like 2007 the last time they played.
You're looking like an EDF
and then
Cup or something.
Well, I saw the Ospreys play Gloucester in, I would say, about 2010's like EDF Energy Cup, And the Ospreys lost 17-0. James Hook had a particularly bad game.
Did he damn me a lot?
Yeah. No, I think he threw an interception pass late on. I think it was like
Jesus.
10-0 and they were like really struggling, but like they can pull this back from here. And
Oh,
then
we played in the Anglo Welsh Cup in 2018.
okay.
I'm gonna find that team sheet now.
Oh, here we go. I can't remember if that was the same season as they played. Oh, might have been. Oh no, it was the season after, wasn't it? So probably played Cardiff away, and Ruben with a brilliant try.
Okay, right.
Okay, so, I've just looked up details of that 17-0 game that I watched the Ospreys lose. Ryan Lamb with 3 penalties to put them 9-0 ahead, right? He then kicks a drop goal. Then late on, James Hook throws an intercept try and Ian Bolshaw scores.
The ghost of Ian Bolshaw.
The ghost of Ian, right before he goes to bloody Biarritz in order to score against us in the next knockout game we play after that.
So, do you want to play a game of Guess the 15?
Oh, okay.
So, this is Gloucester. This is at Kingsholm.
Okay.
This is Gloucester versus Ospreys in 2018. So, let's do... For context, I will go through the Gloucester team to show you what we were sort of going up against.
Okay.
So, at Loosehead for Gloucester was a man called Cameron Orr. I have no memory of this man.
Nope.
At number 2, Richard Hibbard.
Yes! Hero.
Number 3, Fraser Balmain. Younger Fraser Balmain there. 4, Ed Slater. 5, Mariano Galarraza, who I don't remember at all.
Yeah, he was a solid Argentine second row.
Well, speaking of solid and safe, at 7 was Will Safe.
Hey, nice.
6 was Freddie Clark, who's a lot older than I realised. He's like 31 now.
I went to, in the Moments of the Year script, he comes up for his like diving finish. And I'd written in the script like young Gloucester lock, Freddie Clark. And I checked and he's like 34. I was like, right, okay.
How has this happened? 8, Ben Morgan, of course.
Yes.
Number 9, Callum Brayley. Oh, what went wrong?
Ooh.
Number 10, a young William Burns. Billy Burns himself. 11, Ollie Thorley. Now, this is when Ollie Thorley had a breakout season.
Yeah, peak Ollie Thorley time.
This is when he scored that amazing try versus Leicester. They put Kyle Easton on his arse. 12, Mark Atkinson. 13, Henry Trinder, underrated combo. 14, Henry Purdy, good player.
Oh, good player. Good player, Henry Purdy.
15, David Halafanua. Again, a player I don't remember that much. Weirdly, so Henry Walker, bit of a name, Paddy McAllister again. Ben Vellicott was replaced with scrum half.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And Tom Hudson, good player on Rugby Challenge. Okay, so let's go into the Ospreys squad. So who do you think was at Loosehead in the Anglo Welsh Cup in 2018?
I've got a couple of names for different positions, but was Rodri Jones at Loosehead? I think they just switched him back.
No, right. Rodri Jones was at tight head and on the bench this game.
Ooh, okay. Who is about in the? Because this is Alan Clark era, isn't it?
This is peak Alan Clark. Yeah.
Yeah. So wouldn't be Nicky Smith, would it?
It was
one of his exile periods.
Gareth Thomas.
Gareth Thomas. I was thinking him, but I couldn't think when he signed.
He was done
he was fourth choice when Booth joined. No, Hooker.
Scott Otten.
Of course.
Yes.
Number 3 at tight head.
They wouldn't have started Fia, would they?
No, it wasn't Fia. It wasn't any of. So Rodri was probably the most senior prop in the squad.
Alex Jeffries.
It was Alex Jeffries.
Alex Jeffries,
the groundsman. Number 4, we've mentioned him tonight already. It was James Ratty.
James Ratty.
Yes.
James Good.
James Good, yeah.
Of that era. No.
Yeah. Number 5 was he wouldn't have been his surname. He changed his surname after he got married.
Lloyd Ashley.
Lloyd Ashley.
Lloyd Piers.
Lloyd Piers.
Robbie, you've mentioned this guy in one of your 15s before at number 6.
Ooh.
It's the shit one, not the good one.
I think I know he's a 7.
bloody Guy Mercer.
Guy Mercer, yes.
Guy Mercer.
Guy Mercer was at 6. Who was at 7, Yestin?
Was it Will Jones?
It was Will Jones, the
man.
the man who never was.
Yeah, what a miss that was. Imagine if he came through now into Booth. What a
Number 8. The
um
ranks.
Morgan Allen?
No, close.
Rob McCusker.
Very far away, very close.
Oh.
It was Morgan Morris.
Morgan Morris.
It was young Morgan Morris. At scrum half.
Ruben Morgan Williams, because I'm pretty
It
sure
was.
he scored that night.
It was Ruben, yeah. At 10.
Luke Price.
Yeah, of course it was Luke Price. It was going to be no one else. Was it?
It's a game we lost in that era. Yeah, of course it's Luke Price. Bless him.
Number 11 is current Welsh Premiership player. Yes.
Oh, Jay Baker?
Jay Baker, yes.
Sorry.
I'm pretty sure one of the only games he ever played for the Ospreys. 12, it's in his dummy era.
James Hook?
It was Hook. It was the goat. It was the creep inspector of James Hook. 13, I'm not going to say his name because he's an arsehole and assaults homeless people.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. 14, who was the other winger at this period? Never got his big break.
Hanno Dirksen?
No, he got his big break.
Okay.
Tom
Grabham.
I was thinking Tom Grabham.
No, good shout.
Tom Williams.
No. It was Dav Howells.
Dav Howells.
He's at Leeds, no? That's happening.
Yeah.
Good player.
And then at 15, who do you think was at 15?
Sam Davis.
Who always slotted in at 15?
Oh, Dan Evans,
when he was
sorry.
bad. No, it wasn't Dan Evans. He was in the main squad at this point.
But Dan Evans played every game for like 4 years.
Think who was coming up in the academy at that time. I'll give you a hint. He's just been named in the Wales squad as a 10.
Kai Evans, a fullback.
Kai Evans at fullback.
Oof.
I'll go through the bench quickly. Ivan Phillips at 16. Nice. Rowan Jenkins, obviously part of the Expendables. 18, Rodri Jones. 19, a man called Kieran Martin, who I have no memory of whatsoever.
Used to play for Legend a few years ago.
20 is Josh Cole, who is Ivan Phillips' best friend, I believe. 21, the other person who assaulted a homeless man. 22, Tian Thomas Wheeler. Oh, what could have been Tian? And then 23, Dewi Cross, Cardiff, the Rags legend. What a team!
What a team!
What's funny is that's the year we lost 44-0, wasn't it? Or was that the year after?
Yeah, that was about then.
Yeah, the year after. Yeah,
that's not a dissimilar team to what lost 44-0 to the Scarlets. That's how far we've dropped. That's how far we've come. Sorry, we're on a really bad tangent then. We play the Lions with no players available on Sunday.
Yeah. It's kind of a free hit. You know, if something comes of it, we get any points, that's wonderful. I'm not expecting anything.
No. We go out there, you play for pride. At the times we got out to South Africa, I don't think we've ever played that bad. I think we just played a 60-minute game and then dropped off.
Yeah.
A bit like Cardiff do now. They play a 60-minute game, and Harley talked about this on Cardiff Central and on the Wrap. You go all out for 60 minutes and it's just not enough.
Yeah.
Again, it'd be really interesting to see what he does rotation-wise. I think you might see Jack Walsh starting, as well as like a Hickey, Ben Warren, things like that. So I think it's a healthy rotation.
Just enforced. Lewis Jones probably going to have to get his first start. You've kind of got no other choices. You probably need to keep the midfield similar to last week. George North might need to play wing, depending on where we're at with things.
Giles out there. I'm not sure on Luke Morgan.
Okay.
Yestin, do you know on Luke Morgan if he's out there?
I think he might be out there, actually.
Okay, that's good. So, right, we're getting a yellow card. So, you'd imagine the squad is looking like, if fit, maybe it's either Henry or Phillips,
Yeah.
Parry, Bota, Lewis Jones. Christ, here we go.
Adam Beard.
Adam Beard. Yeah, if he's got, I assume he's gone out.
Yeah.
Adam
You kind of don't have a
Beard.
choice but to play him.
You look at a Hickey,
Ratty, Morse. Unless there's a chance, if Deeves was returned to play HIA, he could be back.
You can imagine. I think he has gone out.
Okay.
Then is Ruben back? So you look at Luke Davis. Cameron Jones has gone out, so I assume look at Luke and Cameron again. So you look at Luke Davis, anyone of Dan or Jack or Scully. I assume you look at Jack or Dan.
Yeah.
Kieran and Owen, maybe North onto the wing. With Giles, Hopkins, maybe a Harry Houston.
Hopkins at fullback.
Hopkins a fullback. I would have loved to have taken Tom Florence out.
Yeah.
If he wasn't injured.
The problem becomes the bench, right? Where the front row is okay. Like, you've got players who played regularly there.
Yeah.
But second row, I don't know if there physically is anyone. You probably need to have Ratty cover.
Alex Ashton is
the
second row that's registered, and he played for Swansea against Newport, didn't he, Ashton?
Yeah, he was. I think he came off the bench. I think
so. He's got some minutes. Then you look at this: has Tristan Davis returned to play? Is Jack Regan available? Have we had any word on Hugh Sutton back? Do you know what I mean? So Cameron Jones stops. The backs are looking okay because you can go like a Cameron Jones, Scully, and Harry Houston. So it was a bit lightweight. Prothero will have gone out as well unless he went off injured. So it is bare bones, and the issue is if it was a league game, you're fine. You can call up on players maybe in Welsh Prem or emergency loans, but because it's a European game, you're limited into who you can take because you have to have registered players. So it's going to be tough. I did have the referee written down, but I've lost it. Yeston, do you have that to hand?
No, but I think he's French, so anything goes.
Oh, right, yeah. We're fucked. Breakdown's a mess. So really, really going to be a tough whole time. But I'm looking forward to it. Sunday, 1:00. I assume this will be on Viaplay.
Yeah, I checked yesterday, so I think
good.
Hey, you know what else is on Viaplay?
Oh, here we go. Robbie's film of the week. It was coming.
Love Is All You Need, a Danish rom-com starring Piers Brosnan. Which it no link whatsoever to the Beatles song of the same name. No idea why it's called that, other than the fact that the Danish title translates to the hairdresser without any hair. So I presume they just went, that's just not catchy enough. It's a really charming rom-com by Suzanne Bray, who went on to make Bird Box after this.
Okay.
Really lovely rom-com. Her idea was she wanted to make a rom-com that felt like popular by real people rather than the kind of cookie cutter thing that you get from most rom-coms. It's really lovely. Piers Brosnan's really good in it, which is not a sentence you can say about every film, even ones he's in, especially once he's in. But yeah, I think really, really sweet little film. Probably about 10 years since I saw it, but yeah, liked it. Good stuff. Not quite 10 years, probably like 7 years.
So we've got Love Is All You Need, weirdly starring Piers Brosnan. He was really strapped for cash for this.
Oh, desperate. No link to the Beatles song, which I still don't understand at all.
And again, weirdly, Suzanne Beer doing it, who also did the Night Manager as well.
Yeah,
which is a brilliant show.
And written by Anders Thomas Jensen, who is a brilliant Danish filmmaker. Made a film called Rise of Justice with Mads Mikkelsen a few years ago that I thought was amazing. It was one of my favorite films that year. And a film called Men and Chicken, which I think I mentioned before, where Mads Mikkelsen compulsively masturbates.
But he also wrote The Dark Tower.
Yeah.
So he's gone down in my book. Right, let's move on because we do have an announcement, actually, don't we? We've talked a lot about Lance Bradley, and he's our dad. Lance Bradley has agreed to come onto the podcast next week. We are I have been in contact with him all week. He's been really, really good. He reached out to us. I mean, after a bit of poking and prodding on Twitter, and huge thanks to everyone tweeting him and saying get on the pod and things like that. So the way it's going to work is we are going to run it as like a supporters Q&A. If anyone's listened to the Dragon's Lair podcast and their interview with David Buttress, which I highly recommend going to watch, by the way, it was brilliant. So if you have any questions for Lance Bradley, you need to tweet to me at Ospreys Eyrie. Don't tweet Yeston and Robbie because it will get lost. I will put out a tweet at some point with like an official one to say, put your questions here. I'll also leave it on Facebook in any Osprey supporters groups that I am a part of. If your question doesn't get chosen, it's probably because it's been asked, and because we understand we're going to get the same questions around stadium, money, signings, whatever. Okay, we really can't wait for this. This is a really big thing for us. We've been keen to get a relationship with the Ospreys going, so to get in with Lance is brilliant. Please get down to the Ospreys vs Ulster Q&A before the match with Lance on the 18th of February. It's a really good way of getting your question across. We can only ask so much, and we don't want to take up too much of Lance's time, but he is genuinely committed to improving us. He is genuinely committed to the Ospreys. This is not a PR thing. This is not something he's not in it to make money and all this. He believes in the vision. Okay, so like I said, I will put out a tweet. Huge, Lance, if you're listening, huge thank you. It's been something that we've really wanted to do as soon as you got announced. So next Wednesday, obviously we will still talk about the game and everything, but the majority of that episode will be spent talking to Lance Bradley about his, time at the Ospreys. So that is a really, really, really exciting thing because there are no games. And if I have to talk about the Wales Six Nations squad again, I might cry. Other than that, gents, any messages? Any shout outs? Any messages?
I haven't got. I don't think I've got one.
You haven't got one?
I mean, a big shout out to I did look up the Ospreys team that played in that Gloucester 17-0 game, and it is far too good. It's depressing.
Oh, okay.
So shout out to Gavin Henson, Tommy Bowe, Sonny Parker, Andrew Bishop, Shane Williams, James Hook, Jamie Nutbrown, and the forwards and the bench. I'm not even going to go through it. It's depressing. It was a full-strength team apart from Jamie Nutbrown. Shout out to all of them for giving me a miserable day as like a 12-year-old.
Shout out to all of them. I would like to give a shout out to just to everyone on Twitter. We have smashed 200 followers over the weekend. I took over this account from Lee, who obviously was juggling 4 different podcast accounts, bless him. And I was just wanting to hit 100 followers, maybe have some concurrent listeners that we just have a little community builder. But we smashed 200 followers. The engagement on the Twitter has just been out of this world. Thousands of impressions, and it's not everything, but it really makes a difference when you're not shouting into a void. And that's what Welsh rugby feels like sometimes. We like to keep it lighthearted. We like to keep it shit posting and things like that. And we appreciate everything that comes our way. We're eternally grateful for Robbie for essentially becoming you are a full-time presenter on here now, and you're doing so much in the rugby world, and it just shows how committed you are to the club and to the vision as well. So yeah, it's exciting time to be an Ospreys fan. It really is, and get on the journey. And we'll hopefully start announcing our re-signings soon. But seriously, it's a great time to be an Ospreys fan. So thank you to everyone for listening. You can find us in all the regular podcast links: Apple Podcasts and Spotify. As always, you can find the boys on their socials. Yeston_Thomas21 at Squidge Rugby. Or if you want to weird ramblings about films, was it at Squidgy Goat?
Squidgy goat.
Yeah, I always enjoy that one. It was just for the change of pace. And I also appreciate when you want to boost engagement, I get likes off both your accounts.
Yeah, well, they come up on both, and I'm just like, well, I liked it on the other account. It feels false if I didn't like it from both. I didn't change my mind when I'm no longer thinking about rugby.
And then obviously you can follow the pod at Ospreys Eyrie. You can follow me at James Reese 8, but again, I don't really tweet much. Apart from Leicester, I'm looking at my tweets, and it's one of my own rugby jersey, and Leicester being bad. I will remember to tweet out the link for Duncan Jones, cutting off his hair, absolute legend. Other than that, we will see you next week for a hugely exciting episode and hopefully celebrating a good round of 16 draw. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good week.
Thank you. Cheers.